This is the guidance from the spec, and it talks about presenting a proposed design solution to the client. That's the overview. Of course, that in itself is a bit vague, doesn't tell us a huge amount, but we can drill in and get a bit more detail. Some might say this paragraph is too much detail, which I'll do in one breath. Learners must present their proposed design solution to the client. The presentation must be fit for purpose, we'll get to that in a second, and they should have undertaken appropriate quality checks. I'll explain to you what that means. It should be sufficiently detailed to enable the client to understand the key features of their proposal. Evidence could be in the form of a formal presentation that is videoed. In fact, I've cut that down because yours will be in the form of a videoed presentation. So what I'm going to do first of all is have a look at some of that detail so you understand exactly what it means. Because once, like all of these things, once you get the shape of what's expected, the rest of it, the detail falls into place quite easily. So I've broken this down now. That was the long paragraph. Let's break it down into a series of bullet points so you understand what's going on. Hi, Jamie. First of all, you've got to do a presentation, and think about this as the pitch. This is you pitching your idea to your client. Now, your client may actually very well be present. There is a high likelihood that Mr. Godfrey, the driving instructor, the guy for whom this was written, who's got a driving school, it's highly likely that he will be there at some or all of your presentations. And equally, we've got another businessman who may well be joining to see your presentation. So no stress, no pressure, but it better be good. The presentation must be formal. I'll go into a bit more detail on that, but what we're talking about is that this is a business presentation, effectively. It needs to be fit for purpose. Could a decision be made based on the information that you're giving? And you know, that's probably the simplest and most obvious way to actually understand this. Could a prospective client make a decision based on the information that you've given? And if the answer is yes, then you've done the job. If the answer is no, because key elements are missing, then you might need to go and do it again. Need to be appropriate quality checks, and that's about being accurate, not about making stuff up, but I'll give you a bit more detail on that. Enough detail to grasp the key features, which is really a repetition of the idea of it being, of a decision being able to be taken based on it, and not detailed speaker notes, but videoed. So they do say either detailed speaker notes or videos, but you're going to be doing video, which means that you don't need to do the detailed speaker notes in the presentation software. So here are some ideas for you. Hello, Mr. Godfrey. Let's say hello to you. Well done. It's good to see you here. Okay, the key areas is that you make a presentation. It's going to last 5 minutes. Where's my hand? 5 minutes. Now, 5 minutes isn't 4 minutes, and 5 minutes isn't 6 minutes. It needs to actually be 5 minutes. And when you do your presentation, and it's one of these key things. When I went for my role here as senior head of year, they asked us to make a presentation. If I went beyond the 5 minutes they gave me, they said, thank you very much, and stopped me. That was it. And even though, so if you leave your best points for minute 6, it's not going to get made. So it really needs to be 5 minutes. And I can assure you the difficulty with this will be getting it down to 5 minutes, not getting it up to 5 minutes. You'll see that when you start to make it. So once you've made your pitch, you're probably going to use PowerPoint or some kind of presentation software. It doesn't matter what it is. Rehearse your pitch. You've got it 5 minutes long. You're going to deliver it in Zoom next week. Next Thursday and Friday, I've got a slot for you, which I will tell you about towards the end of this. Your presentation will be recorded, and that's what we will be sending to the moderator. So on Zoom, we're able to record the Zoom calls. So we'll record you doing your presentation, and you can use notes if you like. So now I've got a question for you. Answers in the comments, please. Do I have to include detailed speaker notes in my presentation? Answers in the comments, please. Absolutely wonderful. We have Several correct answers. No, no, no. You're all absolutely right. The answer is no. It's just that it's an area for confusion. The advantage of you doing this course now is that we've run it a few times, and some things seem to confuse people. Because you're going to do a video and you're being video talking, you don't need detailed speaker notes, all right? So if you look at the spec, you could be confused. It says either videoed or detailed speaker notes. You're doing the video, so you don't need them. However, you can use notes when you're actually doing the presentation, and I suggest that you do. And I suggest that you end up with having a couple of bullet points on something about this size, which will probably be enough for you. But the truth is, we've found that when students do these presentations, they're actually better when they don't look at notes at all, because you know this thing off by heart. You've already invested hours and hours and hours in this whole process, so you do know what you're doing. So let's jump into the second point now, which was the notion that this has to be formal, right? Formal presentation. So think Dragon's Den here. This process involves you standing up in front of someone who you want money from, and you're going to give them a very good reason for giving you that money. So it needs to be formal in terms of your business language. So you're not saying, yeah, it's like cheap. You're saying we've got a more costly or a less costly option. In terms of the structure of it, it needs to be a structured presentation, which I'll take you through in a minute, but where you set the scene, you say what you're going to do, you say how you're going to do it, and then you go for your final sales pitch at the end. And I'll take you through that in a minute. So think about typeface, think about appropriate typeface to use for it, think about the appropriate look that you might choose. Template is the word I'm looking for in PowerPoint. Some will work better than others, but it needs to be quite formal. This is a formal business presentation. Think about legibility, which means how readable your text is on screen, and also think about the amount of text that you put on screen. One of the things that just drives me absolutely crazy is this notion of putting everything that you're going to say on screen. It's something that you start doing in year 7 and you keep doing all the way through to year 13. The only thing that you should have on screen are the key bullet points, and you're going to talk around the rest of it. I tried to show you an example of what I'm expecting to see. When you're looking at my presentation there, I've got 8 clear short bullet points. I've been through this presentation probably over 12 times, reducing words that I don't need, cutting it down so it's short, it's sharp, it's accurate. The first thing any student ever asks me when they come in the room is, what are we doing today, sir? So this is your way of showing your audience what it is that you're going to be doing. So make sure that you do it in that structure. I've got a little presentation man there just to add a bit of interest to it. So that's the kind of structure that you're looking for, and all the rest of it is you talking. And while this might sound daunting, you already know a lot about this subject. Think of all the work you've done on your methodologies for P1M1. Think about with P2, all that work you did going through every single feature. And then think about M2, the feasibility study. You've made it through that unscathed. I imagine if you had to talk to a stranger about this process for 15 minutes, you could probably do it without taking a breath. All right, so think about the images, appropriate images, not just random images. And again, don't let your use of images mess up the idea it's a business presentation. You see the thing I've got there? It kind of works because it's someone presenting. All right, think about SPAG. Please check your spelling. Check your SPAG. It's not okay to have spelling and grammar mistakes when you're doing formal presentations for people. And there's a spell check that you can use, so try to avoid those if you can. And think about your colour scheme. Make sure it doesn't make your eyes bleed. And that's really, really important. All right, so we've got another question now. And it's one that I hope you will answer very quickly. Do I write everything that I say in the pitch? So could we please have answers in the comments? Do I need to write everything that I'm going to say in the pitch? Yeah, you're all absolutely on point here. The answer is no. We've got many correct answers there. We've got lots of dings. Everyone gets it. That is absolutely outstanding. You don't. All right. So listen, I don't want to see absolutely everything written out, because it's what amateurs do. You've used PowerPoint so much in school. Can you see the amount of text that I've got on the screen? That is what you're looking for. And mine's a bit colourful. My audience is different. My audience here is teenagers, so I've tried to make it slightly more colourful. When you're doing something Dragon's Den style, no one's looking for super colourful images, all right? Super colourful text, rather. But if you are going to put colours there, you've done some work on this, use the colour wheel and make sure your colours actually complement each other. Or just do black and white, it's absolutely fine. So the answer was no, don't fill the entire screen with text, use tables and use images. Tables are your friend. Tables are a really good way to present costs, so use tables for that purpose. All right, that should take you through that one. Then this fit for purpose statement, which was in the marking guidance, and this is a question: when they say fit for purpose, are you doing what a presentation giving a pitch for a product is supposed to be doing? Have you stated how you're going to solve each request, each feature request that is? Have you listed all the costs, or certainly the main ones? Have you explained the scheduling, the Gantt chart, and with the cost, the table that you put into M2 or P2 somewhere? Have you covered the legal implications? Don't need much on that. 60 seconds, in fact 30 seconds or 20 seconds, just stating that you have covered it and what GDPR means. The best way of doing this, which I'll get to in a second, is to actually demonstrate your product. In other words, you've been building up this wireframe that you started making for P3, and which will be all that you have to do for P5 is just submit your wireframe. So my advice to you is save yourself a week later on, get your wireframe done and dusted, or at least 3-4 pages of it, and use that as the basis of your product demonstration. And that will actually be probably 2/3 of what you finally have to do is talking through your demonstration. It's the most logical way to highlight the features and to explain what it is that you're going to do. And fact check your claims. Don't make stuff up. Now, you don't need to show your bibliography in the PowerPoint because you will already have done that as part of P2 and M2, but don't make stuff up. Not if you can't back it up. If you're making statements of cost, of fact about technology, make sure that you can actually back it up with fact, because you should be simply drawing on what you've done for P2 and M2. So are the facts and figures accurate? Again, quality checks. Put some images for the products you're going to use, maybe dash cam, put a few images, be nice to see what he's spending his money on. If I was throwing 3 or 4 or 5 grand at you, I'd like to see the shiny new dash cam that I'm going to get. That would quite excite me. Cameras always excite me. What about your rationale for scheduling? So a nice screen print of your Gantt chart with a bit of an explanation. You know that paragraph you wrote in M2 about your rationale for scheduling, about this shows this and this shows that, and you think it'll take about a week to program, and then you've got to test it. A quick talk through of that, again, 20-30 seconds. And your proof could be elsewhere, like I said, in P2 or M2, but don't make stuff up. Right, this is more challenging for you. The 5 features that Justin asked for, could you tell me what they are? In the comments, please. The 5 features that Justin has asked for. So let's go back to here. The 5 key areas you were looking for were as follows. Bookings, cancellations, Tutor Pro integration. Tutor Pro is the software that Justin currently uses to do the theory side of things. You've got a theory test and a practical, haven't you? It's been many years since I did a driving test, but you've got the theory test and the driving test. There's only one test when I did it. The dashcam feature, social media and comments. And the comments was Justin leaving comments for his students. All right, so those are the key things that we are looking for. Oh, I can see I've got some answers there. Josh got in with, let's have a look and see what you've got. I didn't pick that one up. I think the delay is actually increasing here. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Josh has got making a booking, asking questions, theory test pro, dashcam footage, leaving feedback. Yes. So that's the stuff that you need to demonstrate that you understand how you're going to solve in the presentation, which isn't a great surprise to you. So I want to now jump forward and look at how you're going to actually make this thing. I imagine that you probably don't need me to do this, but I thought it might be good to give you some kind of structure that you could maybe move around to suit the presentation that you're going to make. So think about this, something like Dragon's Den. You're going to tell the story. So my name is Josh. I'm an app designer and I've been asked to solve Justin's problem. I've been asked to help Justin, Mr. Godfrey, who's got a driving school. He currently uses a paper-based system. He wants to go to an electronic system using an app, and he's asked me to design an app which does this, 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 and this. Boom. That's your first 20 seconds done for you. Don't just start talking as though we know who you are or what you're doing. There was a lot of that in M2 and P2, as though, who are you guys? You wrote a feasibility study and some of you just started talking about dashcam straight away, which was a bit discombobulating. So make sure you set the scene. Tell us what you're going to do. Introduce yourself, set the scene, outline the contents of your pitch. Tell us what you're going to talk about. So just go through, today I'm going to talk about X, Y, Z and B, and go through your list and then talk about things in that order. Talk about the features and the benefits of your product. The features are the dash cam. The benefits are the fact that it means that students are able to look at their driving and find ways to improve before the next session. And so features and benefits are a key way if you ever end up in sales and they send you on a sales course. Day one, features and benefits, and that's what it's all about. A product has a certain feature, but it also has certain benefits which make the customers want to buy it, right? Product demo. Product demo is probably the best way of doing most of this. Once you've done your intro, you've said who you are, you said what you're doing, I would want to show the product, and through showing the product, get through as much of the rest of it as you can, all right? And then technology, show some costs, show some timings, and that would be maybe a slide each talking about, and let's jump in actually. Mr. Godfrey's made a point here, which I think we should probably have a look at. Mr. Godfrey says, Justin is going to be a part of these meetings as a meaningful employer. A meaningful employer, as I'm saying this, Mr. Godfrey, jump in and correct me if I'm misrepresenting this. But the course that you're doing has it has a vocational element to it, and therefore we are supposed to include employers in the teaching process and in the learning process, so that you get a deeper understanding of how what you're doing will be used in real employment, which some of you will have next year and which some of you will have after you finish university or done your next level of training. So Justin has agreed to actually come in and to sit in on the Zoom panel with these meetings, and he's really excited about doing that. We've also got another gentleman who works in the hotel trade. He manages hotels, he's got his own hotel, and he's also shown an interest because he works with Mr. Godfrey on Unit 17 about the Internet of Things, which you've yet to do. That's a coursework unit that's coming up. So if you've got any further questions for Justin at that point, you can just ask. So, you know, one of the key things to remember is that once we finished doing P1, we stepped away from this being you learning about methodologies in isolation to you actually creating something as though this is a real scenario. This is a simulation that we are in now. And so therefore, when you do your presentation, think about it in terms of a simulation and have a go at it. It's nerve-wracking doing presentations. Rehearse it, make it good, make it exactly 5 minutes. Sell your product, because you know what, when you go for your first job interview, when you're in your first role, you're going to be doing exactly this sort of thing, especially given that you've chosen to do IT. Okay, so I've talked about technology, cost and timings, and a summary call to arms. If you've ever watched Dragon's Den, you'll notice that at the end of each presentation, they will do a final, this is why you should buy my product, a kind of big finale at the end to say you cannot do without my product. And so that's where you're going to do your sort of final few words of sales pitch, because this is going to help you. You should spend £5,000 because ... whatever budget it was that I gave you. So breaking it down, start off by saying who you are and introducing yourself. Set the scene and the scenario, the driving school, what Justin does now, what he's asked you to do, why does he want you to do it, outline what you're going to say, why you're doing it, what the product will do, the advantages over the current system, the cost, the schedule and why spend money, all pretty obvious. I'll put this on YouTube straight afterwards so you can see it. Ultimately, why should he pay you £3,000 or £5,000 for this app? What's in it for him? What does your app do, and what benefit will it bring Justin and Justin's students? Because there's a bit of both in there. In terms of the demonstration, I said to you the demo is a really good way of doing this. So show your wireframes or your prototypes, annotate them. So maybe use some boxes and some arrows to annotate your wireframe. Pardon me. Demonstrate the key features. At least show how you make a booking. Maybe show what the Theory Pro screen will look like. You could show the dash cam. You don't have to show absolutely everything, because don't forget that going back to the start of this, it's enough information for the client to make a decision. And that doesn't mean you've got to show every single little thing, but definitely the booking and a couple of other features over a couple of slides would be a great way to deliver this. Just in screen versus student screens, that could be a good thing. If you're going back to your use case diagram, that would be a very good thing to do there. And maybe touch on some of your design decisions. The fact that I think most of you asked me about colour, and I came back to you and said, this guy, unfortunately, is a Manchester United fan. You know, you can't help some people, but therefore he wanted the colours of Manchester United. So you might want to touch on some of the decisions you made around typeface, some of the decisions you made around colour, about the buttons, about you. Again, don't overcomplicate it. You may want to include that, but don't forget you've only got 5 minutes to do this. So make sure you cover the platforms that you're looking at and the coding language. But again, you don't need to go into much detail because you've done that already in M2. And make sure that you've already done that. You've talked about hardware and software as part of M2.